slaves, you're trading for the slaves.
As well as gold, ivory, spices, later palm oil.
Palm oil. All for guns.
Yes,
Money.
different guns, gunpowders, minerals, textiles.
Okay.
No money.
Oh, no money. Okay.
This is where the male captives were held. Male slave dungeon.
Donc nous descendons dans la direction qu'ont prise les esclaves il y a déjà 2 siècles.
So this is how dark the dungeon was, because the holes like the one we are seeing up here were the only sources of light and vent for them. And see how dark it is, even around this time. Imagine how dark it will be in the night. As a result of that, some of them lost their sight, because being here for about 3 months, later went out. The sun rays.
3 months?
Yes.
Donc il est resté ici pendant 3 mois, dans l'obscurité totale.
There are 5 chambers. 5. This is the first one. Each chamber like this. And this one measures 16 by 32 feet square. And it was occupied by 200 slaves.
What's this enclosure?
I'll tell you soon. The 5, 1,000 male slaves.
The 5.
1,000. Each 200 so the 5,000. This one's for the strong men. Strong. Because of that, they changed them. Putting the chains in this post. Long chains on the ankle, in down, the local chain. They wrapped them with a heavy metal. There were many sometimes the dungeon became hot. When that happened, they poured water low on them. Wow. 50% estimated they died.
50%.
Because communicable diseases spread very fast. And there were several diseases here because they were doing everything. Toilets, jewelry, vomit, spots, they ate.
And sleep at the same place.
They used this dungeon for more than 100 years.
More than 100 years.
And never cleaned. They had these trenches to wash down feces, urine, vomit into the sea. But the trenches here choked. So feces, urine, vomit, blood, sweat, tears, saliva, covered the floor and what is needed and about. You see?
What is this?
This is toilet, this is urine, this is vomit, this is blood, and a whole lot mixed with soil. And the whole floor was covered like this.
So the rest was cleaned? And this
Excavated.
Excavated?
Yes, when they did excavation, they left this for us to talk about.
Wow.
Terrible.
And how were they given food?
Normally, domestic slaves working permanently in the castle were bringing food for the commercial ones. But sometimes when those who were hungry, they became aggressive to avoid attacks. They didn't come in with the food, rather dropped food from those slaves.
The slaves, the domesticated slaves?
They ordered them to drop the food.
Donc c'est par ici qu'ils envoyaient la nourriture aux esclaves qui étaient enfermés ici pendant 3 mois.
Their feces, their urine, their vomit, and all that.
And how would they choose which slaves to...
They were examined before they were put into the dungeons.
So the less strong ones would become domestic?
No, those who were weak rather became domestic.
Yeah.
Those who were strong became commercial.
Yeah.
The dungeons waiting for their ships to take them to their Americas.
Okay.
Nos frères africains ont vécu une véritable tragédie humaine ici sur le continent africain.
Yes, because the other 4 chambers is not excavated. Particularly, it's higher here because of this, because of the food sometimes they drop.
So this whole like bump, this whole hill?
Yes, mainly food particles with feces, with vomit, with blood, with sweat. And this road goes up and it's seen right in front of the church. If you get closer here, you see there's a room the ceiling showed.
Yeah.
That's the ceiling of the church.
Oh yeah.
And if you get closer here, you will see the entrance, the door, the blue one. That was the entrance of the church.
Wow.
So they could be passing for church services and you could hear the slaves screaming from the dungeon.
Seriously.
As we are here, if there's someone standing up
We'd
saying,
be praying while you're
yes, well, yeah, keeping
the screams.
Yes, yeah.
Donc une autre pièce pour garder les esclaves avec le même principe. Donc c'est un château portugais, un château d'esclaves construit par les Portugais.
When the ships came, the male slaves were not allowed to walk to the courtyard. Rather, they marched them underground from here to the door of no return, La Porte de no Retour. The entrance was behind this altar, close with this wall. 1833, in the year 1833, the British passed a law to abolish slave trade here. So 1833, they sealed the entrance to signify that slave trade is over. When we step out, we shall see open paths. The burnt marks on them, I told you,
Identification.
yes, when the ships came, before they were loaded, they sorted them out, counted them to know those who died, those who survived. That is why they created this one for more light to see the marks.
So what happened to the slaves who were in this castle when the law was passed? Were they just let back?
Interesting question. There are some people saying they were freed. There were others saying that they were not freed. Rather, they pushed them into the tunnel and sealed it. Do you understand that?
They sealed them in a tunnel?
Yes.
So just beyond this wall?
Yes.
And nobody knows what's behind this wall?
Exactly.
So there could be dead bodies behind this wall?
These are some of the chains.
بيرحمهم سكن.
Because this is how the people here were communicating, worshipping the Supreme Being before Christianity, before Islam. So this is an altar. And the shrine was here before the British came. When the British were here, they were not allowing the Cape Coasters to come around here to worship. They came for the altar into the community. After the British, they brought back the altar, they worshipped the shrine here again. Normally come and meet the priest, the one in charge, sitting on, but he didn't come to them. So people still come here for prayers, for sacrifices.
Okay.
So the shrine is still active.
And before British, there are Swedish people, Danish people, French people who came here in this castle, and
This
what they
castle?
did.
You know, the Portuguese came here first. They had a wooden structure here. So they named this area Cabo Coso, Short Cape, now Cape Coast. But the structure here was supporting Elmina Castle, which was occupied by the Portuguese. But Elmina Castle later fell to the Dutch, right? When the castle fell to the Dutch, then the Portuguese didn't know how to use the wooden structure here for. If the castle, the structure is supporting is gone, then what is the use of just a wooden post? So they left. And the people of Sweden came, built a fort. They named the fort Carlsberg after King Charles X of Sweden. And within 10 years, through wars, the Swedish fort fell to the Danes, to the Dutch, finally to the British. So 1665, they started building this castle. That is why we credit the British for this. So from Portugal to Sweden to Denmark to Netherlands to Britain, 5.
It's an European castle.
Sorry.
It's an European castle.
Yes. European castle.
Donc c'est un château européen dans la mesure où les Suédois, les Danois,
Had theirs at
les
different
Hollandais,
locations.
les Français, les Portugais
This became the
ont
headquarters
participé
for the British.
Yes,
à la traite des esclaves.
During the colonial rule.
Right. Yeah, and then it became the headquarters for the whole
The
Golden
whole
Coast
Gold Coast.
in 1844.
Exactly. The Obamas were here 2009. You can capture this very powerful piece.
Donc le président Obama est venu avec sa femme en juillet 2009.
An everlasting memory of the anguish of our ancestors. May those who died rest in peace. May those who return find their roots. May humanity never again perpetrate such injustice against humanity. We, the living, vow to oppose by National House of Chiefs. Some of the chiefs played a role in transatlantic slave trade. Because some of them gave them land to build the castles, right? Some sold some of their prisoners of war to them. I mean, some of the chiefs. So our current chiefs unveiled this one in memory of our ancestors, telling us that we shouldn't allow such injustice to happen again. But sadly, we still see this man around. Mr. Injustice is still with us.
Injustice or crime against humanity?
May humanity never again perpetrate such injustice. You prefer this should be a crime.
What do you think
It
about
was
that?
even more than a crime.
What do you think?
Yes.
What
I agree
was
with you.
slavery?
What happened here? Worst crime against humanity.
Yes.
Thank
It
you.
has
Sir.
never happened in the world. Transatlantic slave trade affected not Ghana, not Africa alone, but the whole world. It's a crime. But they are telling us that we shouldn't allow this to happen again. But sadly, this man is still around.
Injustice.
Yes. So we should all make sure when we see him, we shouldn't keep quiet. We should say it to my friend, not me. So I'm not worried. I'm unconcerned. Because Martin Luther King Jr. once told us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Let's walk on the tunnel and see the female dungeon's door of no return, door of return. And right there was the church, now children's library. On top of the male dungeon.
Les vagues de la mort, ici à Cape Coast au Ghana, l'un des principaux ports de la traite négrière en Afrique de l'Ouest.
So the British brought these to defend themselves against the Dutch, against the Portuguese, against the Germans, against the French and all that. They brought the cannons and the cannonballs to protect themselves. We are on top of the tunnel. Remember? The tunnel which entrance is blocked off in the middle dungeon. We are right on top of it.
Donc les Anglais ont mis en place ces canons pour se protéger contre les Français, les Portugais, les Hollandais qui venaient concurrencer leur marché très lucratif des esclaves. Dans le cadre du commerce triangulaire entre l'Europe, l'Afrique et les Amériques.
You cannot go down, you can just stand here and have a look.
Ok. Donc on ne peut pas descendre, mais on peut juste regarder. Regardez-moi l'horreur. Regardez-moi l'horreur. C'est catastrophique. La fosse au lion. La fosse à l'homme noir, à l'homme africain.
From the dungeon I told you.
C'est la montagne.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you have access to the tunnel.
Alors on est jeté ici,
Oh, okay. So there aren't any skeletons in there.
comme des
There
rats.
are walls, a couple of walls in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a couple of
So this isn't the entire tunnel.
Yeah.
Une tragédie sans nom.
So soldiers stood there just to keep an eye on them. Those are the spy. Oh, move. This way they have stolen.
On comprend mieux pourquoi. On comprend mieux pourquoi aujourd'hui, avec cet héritage si profond de l'esclavage, il y a une telle facilité partout dans le monde, que ce soit en Europe, aux Amériques ou dans le monde musulman, même dans le monde asiatique, on soit si raciste à l'égard de nos frères noirs.
Ended here, the tunnel. Also blocked off. So from the dungeon, they were coming out here. Initially going out to the ship through here. But seawater was coming in during high tide. That is why they closed this. So when they sealed this, the male captives came out. They joined the women to the door of no return. They sat on canoes, 400, 500 meters. They entered the ships. The bigger ships were called floating coffins.
Floating coffin.
Yes, because the ships were packed like sardines.
Right.
Head in, head out, head in, head out.
So this used to be the point of no return,
for the men.
But then the high tide
Yes.
came too high.
Donc c'est la porte
And the canoes,
du
I mean, the
non-retour.
waves here are so strong.
Un aller vers
That
les
is
Amériques
one of the reasons
sans espoir de retour.
Right.
So that they now went out this way.
So they went out this way, but
Relatively.
would the canoes not
They were
tip
taking
over?
no.
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 Okay.
So they were taking canoes at the beach to the
Okay.
ships. And some of these slave ships had
Straightly
very,
here.
yes, had very ironic names. Names like Jesus, Santa Maria, God is stable.
So this is the point of this is the
Yes,
door of
the
no
door of
return.
no return. This is female punishment cell.
Female punishments.
They were not coming with their wives. Some of them were raping some of the female slaves. And those female slaves who said no to rape, about 8 of them were pushed inside here. Food, water, once a day through that hole. Feces, urine, vomit, you know, as women when they had their menses. After 7-10 days, those who survived were allowed to go back into the dungeons, just to punish them here. So next time they will agree also to serve as a lesson to the other female slaves. So this was a cell for those female slaves who said no to rape.
How many days did they spend here?
7-10 days.
7.
But they feed them
Once a day.
once a day.
Donc voilà, à partir de là, c'est fini. Plus d'espoir de revenir en Afrique. Donc là, c'était la pièce réservée aux femmes esclaves. Donc vous imaginez qu'il n'y avait pas de lumière à
That's
l'époque.
what Madame Kamala Harris brought.
Kamala Harris brought this.
Yes.
The Vice President of the United States. When did she bring this?
She visited this castle, I think about 3-4 months ago.
3 months ago. Wow.
3-4 months ago. Female dungeons. We saw the men had 5 chambers for about 1,000 male slaves. Women had 2 because they needed more men than women. But you know, they needed the women again for reproduction because children of slaves automatically became slaves. They had this chamber and the opposite one. And they too had about 300 female slaves and children, boys and girls, 13 and a little above 13. Each one of them. They also defecated here, urinated here.
300 personnes.
150 here,
150.
150 here.
The meal was
150 et 150.
The meal was 200.
Personne n'était stocké ici. Donc ici 150 et là-bas 150. Avant d'être embarqués dans des bateaux qui étaient assurés par des assureurs européens et notamment des juifs, des juifs portugais
This is the infamous
qui vivaient en
door of
Hollande.
time. Final exit point
Voilà, la porte
for the captives. They went to this door and never came back.
du non-retour.
They went to this door
of
with
no
lost
return.
contact to them forever. The moment one went to this door, he lost everything. Name, culture, family, religion, language, even lost dignity as human being. You know, most of them died. Most of them. Because some researchers are saying in total, the Europeans had about 60 million slaves in a business which lasted for about 400 years. Out of the 60 million, there's only about 10, 11, 12 million, depending on the researcher, made the journey across the Atlantic. If 12 million survived, about 48 million died. 48 million people is more than the population of this country. All these people we are talking about were young men and women, most of them between the ages of 13 to 45 years. Those were very strong, very energetic, very intelligent were the kind of people they were taking. So Africa was depopulated. The labor force is taken away. The transatlantic slave trade, we can say, had and is still having huge negative effects on the continent. Because you know there are more black people in Brazil than in Ghana, Togo, Benin put together.
Yeah. Yeah.
About 100 million blacks in Brazil. Ghana, we just around 32 million. And I think Ghana population is higher than that of Togo and Benin. So if there are about 25 million in Togo, 25 million in Benin, that would be 50 million plus Ghana. So the population of Ghana, Togo, Benin together, we cannot match black people in Brazil alone. Most of them are there because of transatlantic slave trade. Count of the number of people in Jamaica, Haiti, the number of black people in Haiti, US of A, Suriname, Barbados, Canada, and others.
And which is the main difference between this castle here in Ghana and Gorée Island in Senegal?
Gorée Island, Cape Coast Castle. Gorée is like a fort. You know, this one is bigger than that of Gorée Island. But they were all used for similar events and activities. It was also a slave dungeon. And aside these three castles in Ghana, there are several forts, which most of them were used for similar purposes. When coming from Accra, you saw Fort Amsterdam on top of a hill. I don't know if you came from Accra. One of the several forts, which was built by the British. Later, the Dutch took over. So it was Fort York. When the Dutch took over, they renamed it Fort Amsterdam. Slaves went to that. Just after 2 kilometers, you meet Anumabo. That's where I live. In Anumabo, there's a fort there called Fort William. It was a slave post as well. So the one in Gorée Island, the one in Ghana, similar purposes. But they built about 60 of such structures in West Africa, forts and castles, European buildings. Out of the 60, Ghana had about 40. So Ghana was the major transit point.
Wow. Out of 60. Out of 60, Ghana
Yes,
has like 40.
40.
Doorway to Africa.
That's why you cannot trace most of the forts in other West African countries, but Ghana. And even those they built in out of the fort, you cannot talk about 22 of them existing. It was short and narrow door, one slave force at a time, so they bowed down, threw themselves one after the other, went to the door and never. This one is beyond the door of no.
Voilà, la porte du non-retour s'ouvre et c'est ici que les esclaves africains quittaient leur pays, leur identité, leur langue, leur religion, leur famille pour être embarqués aux Amériques. Donc voici le port de Cape West. Good afternoon, brother.
Now look back. What is there?
Door of Return.
Door of return.
La porte du retour. Can you explain us what is the meaning of this door from there?
Ghanaians named the other side of Door of No Return Door of Return to break the jinx of Door of No Return. We named Door of Return on 1st August 1998, 25 years ago. That is when Ghana celebrated first Emancipation Day. On that very day, it was very symbolic. That very day, our 2 caskets contained skeletal remains, bones, of 2 ex-slaves died, buried. Madame Crystal was from Jamaica, Samuel Cousin from New York. They exhumed their bones, brought them to Accra. Boarded a car from Accra to the fort I just mentioned, Fort Amsterdam. When they got there, they put them on canoes like this. Some people accompanied. They brought them by the sea out of this place. They sent them to the door inside the castle. Short ceremony held here. After they sent the remains to Asimanso for reburial. Asimanso, there's a river there called Slibber.
This is the first day of Ghana's independence in 1957?
No, 1st August 1998.
1998.
Independence 1957.
Yes. So the Door of Return happened in 1997?
No.
Or sorry, 1998.
1998.
Okay.
25 years ago.
Okay.
We had our independence about 66 years ago.
Okay.
It was initiated by former President late Jerry John Rawlings. So they sent the remains to Asimanso for reburial. Because Asimanso, when the slaves were coming, when they got there at the banks of the river, they stopped them, shaved them, gave them bath, polished them with shabata. But those who were somehow old with some grey hairs who look younger, attractive for higher prices in the castles. So they never bathed in the dungeons, in the castles. Last bathed them. That is why they sent the 2 remains there for reburial. On that day, August 1, 1998, when the jinx of Door of No Return got broken, Ghanaians named the other side Door of Return. Inviting our brothers and sisters, African Americans, African Europeans, African Caribbeans to come back to Africa, to reconnect, to help develop the continent. It's that when you return, you see on the wall, boldly pasted Akwaba. Akwaba means welcome. So you are welcome.
So in 1990, this was...
1998.
So in 1990, this castle was refurbished.
No. It was already refurbished. Just that we celebrated a festival.
Yes.
Like we introduced or instituted Year of Return 2019.
Okay. So in 79, this joined the UNESCO World Heritage.
Yes.
With 27 other forts. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And but USAID had with the Smithsonian Institute, I think in 1990 they helped to refurbish
a museum.
Okay. Yes. And the museum aspect of this fort is still here.
We temporarily closed the museum.
Okay.
Because we need to update the museum, so we closed this for innovation works.
Okay.
Like we did in Accra National Museum.
Okay.
Let's return.
Donc ici c'est la porte du retour et de l'autre côté c'est la porte du non-retour.
La porte de retour qui a été créée en 1998.
Il y a 25 ans à peine. Donc ici c'est la porte du non-retour. Door of no return.
Akwaba is here because of Door of Return.
Okay, so they put this, ils ont mis ça avec la porte de retour pour dire bienvenue aux Afro-Américains qui voulaient retourner en Afrique pour redécouvrir leurs racines.
Très bien, merci. Donc c'est marhaba, bienvenue.
All right, 10 minutes.
Yes, more than 10 minutes. Thanks a lot,
We're very
brother.
grateful for your generosity.
Yes, before we say bye-bye, before we end the tour, what I want to share with us all is that we are all witnessing that the dungeons here empty, no more slaves. The transatlantic slave trade is indeed over, right? But sadly, painfully, we still see forms of slavery, injustice, unfair treatment in our homes, in our villages, in our cities, in our countries. Child labor, or child trafficking, child prostitution, racism, mental slavery. We abuse our house helps, workers, wives, children, stepchildren. Let me use this opportunity to say this. You know, what is trending in Ghana, some part of Africa, is that some people, they see some young men and women, especially young ladies, they promise them better lives, better jobs. Take them to, especially some of the Gulf countries, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Dubai. When they take them there, they seize their travel documents. Some of them work, they don't pay them. Some of them are beaten mercilessly by their employers. Some of them are raped by several men a day. Some of them are even killed. Some of them, when they narrate, when they tell you their stories, you realize that the kind of treatment, the kind of pain, the kind of agony some of them go through in those countries, it's not that different from what happened in the dungeons. So we should go out, do our best, and ensure that slavery and slave trade will never and ever occur again, in any way, in any form, against any of the races. Because we may not know the next perpetrator and the next victim. And I don't believe that any of us here would like to be a victim of slavery or slave trade. But if you see anyone who wants to be a perpetrator, this is what Abraham Lincoln said, and I quote, "Whenever I hear anyone arguing for slavery, I feel a strong impulse to see it tried on him personally." End of quote. What I'm trying to say is, if you want to treat your fellow human being as slave, if you want to trade in slaves, you come. Let's lock you up in the dungeons for a couple of weeks, couple of months. When you survive the dungeons, when you come out and you think, you feel just comfortable in here, you can then start keeping your fellow human beings in same condition. So let's all try, treat each and everyone equally, at least like the way we treat ourselves. When we do that, I trust and I believe this world will be a very, very peaceful world for all of us. So
I have a question,
yes,
brother. So do you think that the roots of the racism that we see nowadays is slavery?
It's racism existed before slavery, because when they came, the kind of treatment they meted to the people here, right? They couldn't do same to their people, so it's a form of slavery.
For example, now in North Africa, there are racism against black people, African
black
people. What do you think about that?
Racism is everywhere, and transatlantic slave trade played a role, but it's a human nature, right? It's how people think about other people. Some people who are racist, right, had nothing to do with slave trade, but they are racist. You understand? So racism is a human attitude. I think that's the fundamental point. It's a human attitude. It's an individual attitude. You know, there are some people who were directly or indirectly involved, but they are racist, and others who were not, and who are also not racist. So it's a human attitude.
Even within the same race, it's possible.
Yes,
Tribalism.
yeah, exactly. Tribalism, yeah.
Ethnic
divisions and all that. So once again, my name is Richard, your guide for the tour and nice evening.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Richard.
You're welcome.
You have nearly the same name, Richard, Rachid.
Oh, okay.
Nice to meet you.
So when will the museum be reopened?
I can't tell.
Okay.
This how it was built is crazy. Looking at the space, was it built on the sea or what?
Donc nous sommes ici à Cape Coast, au Ghana, à 3h30 de voiture de la capitale Accra. Cela fait partie de notre tournée intellectuelle de la route des esclaves que nous avons commencé donc à Dakar, à l'île de Gorée, que nous avons poursuivi donc au Bénin, ensuite au Togo, maintenant au Ghana, et nous allons continuer dans les prochains jours en Côte d'Ivoire, Inch'Allah, et bien sûr en Éthiopie, car à Zanzibar, en Tanzanie, en Éthiopie et au Soudan du Sud, il y a eu ce qu'on appelle la traite des Noirs par les arabo-musulmans. Évidemment, nous n'allons pas occulter cet événement très important. connaissez maintenant Iskander, c'est mon fils. Donc à l'époque, les Noirs africains n'avaient pas besoin de visa pour aller aux Amériques. C'était un voyage gratuit, payé par les négriers européens. Et aujourd'hui, apparemment, on n'a même plus besoin des Noirs pour aller aux États-Unis. Ils ont besoin d'un visa. Et puis même quand ils demandent un visa, ils ne peuvent pas l'obtenir.
C'est pratiquement impossible d'avoir un visa pour aller aux États-Unis, particulièrement si vous êtes un adulte. Ça dure approximativement 5 ans pour obtenir un visa en Amérique. Et il n'y a pas de programme de répatriation ou d'aide pour réunir ces deux cultures, ces deux continents-là. Et s'il y en a, il n'est pas très puissant ou important. Et donc c'est vraiment une question individuelle et financière. Si quelqu'un a les moyens de pouvoir retourner en Afrique pour pouvoir se reconnecter à leurs racines. Et en tant qu'Africain, en tant qu'Américain, c'est une question qui doit être examinée. C'est une chose qui est difficile, je pense, pour les personnes individuelles africaines comme américaines. Et je pense que c'est un privilège pour nous d'être ici, de pouvoir apprendre cette histoire et de pouvoir participer dans l'histoire du futur pour essayer de trouver une solution au racisme et pour découvrir les vérités et toutes les vérités du marché rectangulaire de l'esclavage.
Merci à Texara. Donc on va finir cette visite en montrant les grands panafricains qui ont essayé de militer pour qu'il y ait l'union de tous les Africains.
Take good care.
We'll be back. You understand English?
Donc voici quelques portraits de grandes personnalités qui ont développé la philosophie panafricaine. Donc l'ancien président du Ghana, Thierry John Rawlings, Marcus Garvey, que très peu de gens connaissent, c'est un Jamaïcain qui a vécu aux États-Unis et qui a créé une compagnie pour demander aux Américains, aux Afro-Américains qui souhaitaient retourner en Afrique, donc de pouvoir le faire, notamment au Libéria. C'était un État qui a été créé par les États-Unis. Donc Marcus Garvey a créé une compagnie maritime pour permettre à des Afro-Américains de retourner en Afrique. Mais malheureusement, à l'époque, les Américains n'étaient pas très contents de son activisme et ils lui ont sorti une affaire fiscale. Et il a été obligé d'être exilé des États-Unis vers l'Angleterre où malheureusement il a fini dans l'anonymat. On ne présente plus Malcolm X, qui est un des leaders des Black Panthers, donc un grand apôtre de la cause noire, de la cause africaine et de la cause panafricaine. Dr Eric Williams, un des promoteurs aussi de l'idée de panafricaine. Patrice Lumumba, l'ancien chef de gouvernement de la République démocratique du Congo, qu'on appelait à l'époque le Zaïre, qui a été tué, malheureusement, car il remettait en question les intérêts économiques, notamment de la Belgique, qui était l'ancienne puissance coloniale à la République démocratique du Congo. Voilà un homme que je respecte beaucoup, c'est le docteur Kwame Nkrumah. C'est le père fondateur du panafricanisme politique moderne, premier chef du gouvernement du Zaïre. Malheureusement, après avoir fait la promotion de l'organisation de l'Union africaine, de l'unité africaine en 1963, le docteur Kwame Nkrumah, qui a fait ses études aux États-Unis, a été victime d'un coup d'État orchestré par l'Angleterre avec à la fois la police et des soldats du Ghana. Donc, lors d'un voyage, visite officielle en Chine, le 24 février 1966, il a été victime d'un coup d'État dès qu'il est arrivé à Pékin. Et il est mort de la prostate, vous savez que je souffre de la prostate, en Roumanie en 1972. Thabo Mbeki, c'est un grand monsieur africain qui essaie de défendre la cause panafricaine aussi, depuis l'Afrique du Sud jusqu'en Algérie. Donc c'est un homme qui compte dans les 3 dernières décennies. L'ancien président de Tanzanie, Julius Kambarage Nyerere, qui était instituteur et qui a beaucoup fait pour que justement la Tanzanie joue un rôle important dans le cadre de l'unité africaine. Frédéric Douglass, autre chantre du panafricanisme, et on ne présente plus bien sûr Thomas Sankara, qui est l'ancien président du Burkina Faso. À l'époque, on l'appelait la Haute-Volta, qui a changé son nom avec un nom indigène, local, Burkina Faso, et qui malheureusement a été tué par son ami Blaise Compaoré. Donc voilà pour ce tour d'horizon ici, à Cape Coast Castle, au Ghana, pour ne jamais oublier la tragédie de l'esclavage, et nous incitons tous les hommes sur terre et notamment tous les musulmans à venir ici pour se souvenir de cette stratégie sans nom, car malheureusement les Arabes et les musulmans ont aussi participé à la traite négrière avec des pratiques ignobles, notamment la castration dont nous parlerons dans des prochaines vidéos. Merci beaucoup. Salam alaikum.